You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and joining me from the Coaster101 team this week is Nick Weisenberger up in Ohio. Nick, how's it going?
Pretty good. Just trying to survive the winter snowstorms here.
Oh my gosh. Well, fortunately, I hope by the time this airs, it's going to all be melted at that point. But we are right now in the middle of our off-season interview series, and we have been fortunate to have been joined by some really great people in the industry, out of the industry, fans of the industry, et cetera, et cetera. We've got another great interview for you guys this week. We are joined this week on the podcast by the roller coaster sales and marketing director for Zamperla Attractions. Please welcome to the podcast, Adam Sandy. Adam, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you guys?
Oh, it is a beautiful day. Fortunately, I don't have any snow where I am. I know Nick's he's buried under 2 feet of snow right now, so it's all good.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, no, it's not bad here. It's chilly, but we were going to get a little ice this week, but nothing like Texas or the South right now.
That's awesome. Well, Adam, you've got a very interesting bio when it comes to the theme park and amusement industry. I know you got your start at Ride Entertainment, but can you go a little bit into your personal background and kind of how you got your start and why people should know the name Adam Sandy?
Sure. I mean, I was one of the kids who grew up just wanting to design roller coasters. I know there are a lot of them out there, and that was certainly me. And I think for a lot of people on kind of whatever you want to call it, the hobbyist, enthusiast side of things, that there are a lot of kids who grow up and want to, that's their calling. They're like, I want to design rides. And that was me. And I love the history part of it, but I really thought that's what I was going to do. And then I hit high school and I realized I'm okay at math and science, but I don't love math and science. And I think you really have to love math and science to get one of the jobs designing coasters. There aren't a whole lot of those to begin with. And so it's a pretty high bar. And I was just that's not going to happen. So I was a history major in college. And actually, we had to write not a thesis because I was on a post-grad or anything, but we had to, for our senior year, I had to write a paper. So mine was on the American amusement park industry from the end of World War II through the beginning of the theme parks. So I incorporated that into my college work. And then I just went looking for a job afterwards and kind of knew I didn't want to be on the park side. I was never really interested in being an operator on that side. I God bless the people who do, because we need all of them. And it is sometimes long days, some unthankful work and very hard work. I in no way want to minimize that because I get that. But I was also I just didn't see myself being great at that and kind of working in that realm of the industry. So I was just sort of able to look around, and I've shown the image on a lot of talks I've given. I still have kind of my pile of rejection letters from ride manufacturers. I have about 20 of them or so that I reached out to that summer of 2001. And then I just landed a job with Amusement Business, which was back in the day a news weekly. So it came out every week, and it was associated with the Billboard magazine. So it dated back to the 1890s, I think 1894 or 6. And it was kind of the news source for the outdoor attractions industry. And that's really how I got my start. So I was there selling to water slide manufacturers, roller coaster manufacturers, ride manufacturers from 01 to 03. And then I joined Ride Entertainment in 04 as effectively the second employee at the company.
Wow. So, I mean, you've been in sales a good bit, I guess a very good bit since you graduated college. I mean, is the sales process for roller coaster sales and marketing, is it very similar to just a traditional sales process? Is it a lot of cold calling or, quote, catching up with people you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, I would say not so much cold calling because we don't obviously do a lot of volume. We're not a volume business, but it is certainly a relationship-based business. And when I started in the industry, it was really about just getting to know people. And then the further you get into the industry, I think whether it's our industry or other selling expensive things, whatever that may be, you realize you kind of need to find your niche. Some people just have a really great sales personality, and they can work off of that. I never could. That was never my thing. I'm not great at that kind of just instant connection with somebody. Because, there's some people that just have that. And I realized I didn't. So I really went what I call the technical salesman route. So I realized my benefit was not a lot of people in the industry. And certainly when I entered, most of the salespeople were 50 plus. And I was, for a long time, the youngest salesperson in the industry. And so I realized a lot of my competitors just didn't know what the rides did. They knew what they cost and who made them. And they strictly made sales based on relationships. And that's how I sort of leveraged my value, was coming in and showing that I knew what I was talking about. So even though I was a young kid, quote unquote, I was able to come in and sometimes outwork my competitors on the technical side and get some deals that way. Like some early ones were the spinning coaster at Six Flags New England, Mystery Mine, and a few others, and that was sort of my angle.
So at Zamperla, are you just selling roller coasters, or if a potential client is like, no, we don't want a coaster, then do you counter them with another ride? Like, well, what about a Nebula or some other flat ride?
Yeah, so my specialty at Zamperla is coasters, and that's really my focus. Certainly if we have the conversation when I'm visiting and they bring up some other attractions they're interested in, I definitely know. I'm learning. Let's say it that way. We offer a lot. So I'm learning the portfolio, but definitely we'll have the conversation. But like in North America, for example, I have counterparts like Ramon and Michael who are great salesmen, and they handle essentially the rest of the portfolio. So I would have some kind of high-level conversations about product and then really bring them in to do a follow-up, because I do have enough ride experience that I can talk about the attractions, but I would say they're really the specialists when it comes to flat rides.
Got it. Well, you mentioned like when you're traveling, and obviously nobody's traveling in the world right now. You mentioned you were kind of that fan of the industry. You grew up wanting to build roller coasters. But when you travel around and see all these new parks and countries and places of the world, does that excitement ever wear off? Or are you still kind of the coaster geek at heart a little bit?
Oh, definitely. I think it's a mixed bag, because the positives are there, certainly. So I have been super fortunate to be able to see much more of the world than a lot of people do. I've been to Japan several times, all over Asia, some places in the Middle East, all over Europe, and that's been awesome. And I've gotten to see a lot of parks and some out-of-the-way parks there too. So I feel extremely lucky. I think, certainly as I've gotten older and have a family now, being gone is different. When I met my wife, we met after I've been at the job for about 18 months. So essentially the whole time I've known her, I've always traveled. So that's been kind of built in the relationship. But, when you have kids, you want to be home. And so I've learned to structure things just differently. And I'm certainly gone a lot more. But I'm also like the cook in the family. So like if I travel for a week, I'll do all the cooking so the kids have something to eat that's home cooked for the week. And when I'm here, I'll try to spend more times and have school, go to school activities like their dance recital or other things like that. And I think on the one hand, I am gone more, but the flip side is I get to be home more. And because I don't work a 9-to-5 job, I pick up the phone if I'm awake. So that also allows me to go if they have a school event at 2 p.m. I can do that. So it certainly has pros and cons to it, but we've learned big picture to kind of adjust my adult quote unquote dad life around that. But on the park side, I certainly enjoy going to see new things. And I've been really fortunate to go to places like, I think it's called Chimelong, like Ocean Paradise in China, and get to go ride Parrot Coaster and see that park, which PGAV did a lot of the master planning on that, and is just gorgeous thematically. Or go to places like Liseberg or Tibidabo and see those parks that have an amazing amount of history and a great ride collection. So I've been very, very fortunate. I think certainly people in general who travel a lot get burned out a little bit, and that comes with traveling a lot. But I think you kind of just learn to adapt to that lifestyle, or you just leave a job like that. There aren't a lot of people who stay in this sort of position that feel comfortable doing that long term if they just burn out on travel.
What percentage of the time would you say were you traveling?
I would say historically, on average, I'm gone about a third of the year. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but in general, it's much more like that. And with Zamperla, I think it'll be similar. I get to do, I think, a little more structured travel here, where I'm gone maybe Monday through Friday and come back home, as opposed to at Ride. I was doing a lot of just random long trips. I did do I call it a day trip. I was on 36 hours, but I did a day trip to Belgium once, things like that. So I'm looking forward to maybe having a bit more of a structured travel schedule as opposed to I need to be somewhere the next day. I think the craziest one I had was I found out from a client you need to be in Dubai in 48 hours. So that was the shortest term notice I ever had.
Wow, that's crazy.
And you were, I'm sure, were you flying coach to Dubai?
I was, yes. So I did not fly business or first class unless those were sold out. Or I should say that, and not sold out. But like I did do some last minute travel where the flights were sold out, and so I got to fly business or first, but business or first was not my regular. But yeah, like economy plus is where I'm used to flying a lot. So it's kind of as long as I have that leg room and a plug where I can put my computer in, I can kind of sleep and work, and I'm happy.
Well, while you were at Ride Entertainment, I know you were recently on the Drunk Riders podcast. You mentioned that you sold the American Dream coasters in 2012, and then they finally opened in 2019. Is that the longest sale to opening you've been involved with?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun coming in, and that's one of the reasons why essentially the Fuji Q design is at American Dream. We were working on a 24-month turnaround, and then they just, they had some issues with the economy, and then it just took a long time. They were raising a lot of money, and, my hat's off to them for accomplishing an amazing turnaround. I think they were the third owner on the property, so to actually make it happen is pretty amazing, but it understandably took a long time to raise funds and work from greenfield, because the land the amusement park and the water park are on was actually all marshland. So that was actually, even though the existing structure for the mall was built, that was all a greenfield build. So when I visited in 2012, we stood on top of one of the structures and got to see marshland, and our partner at 555 was saying, yep, that's where the water park's going to be, and that's where the amusement park's going to be. And it was literally just wetlands. And so it's pretty amazing what they were able to accomplish, even in the time it took. It was a massive build.
Kind of on the other end of the spectrum, what's your shortest sale to opening that you had probably during your time at Ride? I don't think you've quite sold anything and opened anything with this Zamperla quite yet.
Not quite yet. My shortest, I sold a Eurofighter. I think we contracted in August of one year, and I'm not going to name the park, but we contracted in August one year for a Eurofighter that was already designed, and we opened it in May of the following year, just because the workload that they had at the time was busy but not slammed. And we're able to kind of fit it in because it was an existing design. So they had to engineer for the loads of the area, seismic, soil, ice loads, things like that. But it essentially was an existing design, not a custom one. So we're able to turn it around fairly quickly.
So the amusement industry in general seems kind of like a bit of a copycat industry, where somebody like comes out with a ride concept and then somebody else comes out with something very similar, almost trying to like one up theirs and so on. So how would you react when a competitor releases a concept that's very similar to the one that you sold before?
I think it's always been sort of part of the industry's DNA, to be honest. Just, even if you go back to the rides of the 50s, 60s, when Schwarzkopf started putting out attractions and other German manufacturers did, like the Huss Schwarzkopf Enterprise is kind of a great example. I think it's really not that big of a deal. I think there's certainly been some issues with IP, especially in the Chinese market sometimes, and that's frustrating, because if you have someone just trying to get a hold of drawings or other things, that's kind of not playing by the rules. But if you see a cool concept and you're like, we think we can do that and we can do it better, then, my hat's off to you. No harm, no foul there, for sure.
Let's move into your current role a little bit. Obviously, you had been at Ride Entertainment, I know you mentioned, since 2004. And last year, you made the decision to leave Ride Entertainment and kind of go over to Zamperla. Why was 2020 the right time for you to make that move?
I think for me, just a lot of things kind of came together at the same time. So obviously, selling during a pandemic is not ideal. So I just kind of saw that there weren't going to be a lot of sales in the immediate future. So that combined with the fact that my wife works for the government, which means we have great health care and a secure job there. So, that was covered, didn't have to worry about things, issues like that. And then also just, I saw at Ride, we'd certainly pivoted a lot toward the operation side. The company had 7 operations they had, and more that seemed to be the focus and a little less on sales. So that was a little less interesting to me. And I was also, so I'm 42 now. I'm kind of in an interesting age where I don't want to call it a midlife crisis, but I'm kind of old enough to have a lot of experience, but young enough to still be comfortable traveling and on the road a decent amount. So just all in all, it felt like a really good time. So I actually left Ride with no plan for my next step. And then I left in late July. Ramon at Zamperla just gave me a call in early September and said, hey, we've got some big things planned. Would you be interested in talking about coasters with us? And I was looking for a job. So of course I said yes, because, quite honestly, I didn't think I'd have a job because of the way the pandemic affected our industry for 12 to 15 months. So I said, yeah, sure, we can talk some more. And then in my mind, I was like, well, I don't really want to sell, kiddie coasters and Volares. That's not really my long-term plan. And, I talked to him, he's like, no, that's not what we're doing. The ownership has a distinct vision for where they want to take the company, and being innovative in the coaster business segment was really a big part of that. And once he and I had that conversation, and then I talked to Antonio, who's the third generation, he's the CEO now, and third generation family to run the company. I got a much better understanding of his and the company's vision for the future in coasters. And it was certainly saying, we've made some good coasters in the past, we made some bad coasters in the past, but moving forward, how can we be a significant player in the market and also an innovator in the market? And when I heard all those things together, I was like, man, this just feels like the right fit for me. I was very excited to be part of a team that was looking to change the game, and really happy to be there. And that's kind of what solidified my jump over to Zamperla, just because they were willing to say, we've made some good stuff, some bad stuff, but we want to be the ones who are rewriting the rules. And I was thrilled just to be a part of that team.
So by the time this airs, you'll have been officially on the job a little over 2 months. Those 2 months, what's it been like for you? Has it kind of been like drinking from a fire hose? I know they've got, Zamperla's got this just vast catalog. And what have the first couple of months been like for you?
They've honestly been really good. And I've told a lot of people that, considering I've been onboarded by an Italian firm during a pandemic, it's gone surprisingly well. They have Teams integrated, so like Microsoft Teams integrated really well. So I talk to my team members here in North America. I talk to the Italian team on a daily basis, basically. So that, just from getting to know people, that's been pretty awesome. So my kind of two groups that I talk to a lot are the North American team, and then the coaster team in Italy, and then whatever other sales team members around the world are working on projects. And I think technology in that case has just been wonderful, because I can ring up, Alberto, who runs our coaster division in Italy, and the other team members there, and just have face-to-face conversations right away. So on the one hand, it's disappointing because in normal times, quote unquote, I'll be traveling to Italy on a much more regular basis. But for now, I can at least have conversations with our team, which have been really, really productive, and just nice to get to know people both on a professional level and on a personal level, even though I still haven't really left my house for most of Zamperla work yet. So it's been really good so far.
What's that 6-hour time difference like?
Honestly, I'm fairly used to that, so that hasn't been too much of a challenge for me, just working with companies like Earthflower and Funtime in the past. So I start my days usually pretty early, like 5:30, and I've done that for a while. So I kind of just catch up on things before the kids are up, then get the kids ready for school, and then just start my day with a meeting with our North American team, and also then if I need to touch base with the Italian team too. And then what I also try to do a lot is, obviously since I'm dealing with right now clients all over the world, but especially right now, West Coast clients, if something comes in late in the day, before I go to bed every night, I just make sure I kind of send an email to whoever in Italy needs to see it, just so they have it waking up. Just because if I try and, give someone a phone call when I'm quote unquote starting work in the morning, it's already 3 o'clock in the afternoon and they may not have the answer. So that's just some habits I developed at Ride because I'm so used to working with Europeans, is that I kind of segment my day in a lot of ways, just depending on the partners I'm working with. And really, because sales in general is so much not a 9-to-5 job, I'm very, very used to kind of always being on the clock. So and it's not a bad thing. On the one hand, if, something needs to be done, it gets done. On the other hand, I'm totally comfortable at 8, just turn on the TV. And if I have clients text me or email me, I'll just, pop a response or email my counterpart in Italy and say, hey, this park was looking for this info. Can, you pull this together? Let's talk about it in the morning, things like that. So it's just different because kind of work is just part of the day as opposed to being a 9-to-5 job where I just turn the phone off at 5. But since I'm doing something I love, it also makes it a lot more enjoyable.
So far, there are many other major differences between what you did before and selling for Gerstlauer for Ride Entertainment, and then versus what you've done so far now, even though it hasn't been that long,
Sure.
Selling for Zamperla with their vast range of coasters.
Yeah, I think the big difference is just, the scope of the company. So certainly at Ride, I think we had maybe 10 or so full-time people, and now we've got over 400 at Zamperla. So it's certainly a different business strategy, different business model. But for me, the big thing has just been being at a company who is right now just looking at the pandemic and saying, okay, while a lot of our competitors have pulled back, they're saying, let's double down. So we're going to be releasing a lot of new attractions. I can't really get into many specifics, but I can say we're going to be releasing a lot of new attractions. We just showed one of the first ones this week over the next 9 months, and some of those you can ride at IAPA. And so the ownership and everyone kind of guiding the company saying, let's look at what we can do different and what our clients need right now. So we're creating some water attractions like the big waves that we showed last winter. We're going to have some new coaster concepts we're going to share this year, and really saying, what does the market need, knowing that there are obvious budget restrictions from our buyers right now because of the pandemic, but also a need to innovate. So coming out with things that are affordable but extremely marketable that our clients can put in the park. They're going to get guests back. This is my personal opinion. I think that this year is going to look better. Next year is going to look great, at least in the North American market with the way things look. But parks are going to want to put attractions in that have, some real curb appeal and instant likability. So we're coming up with attractions that sell themselves, whether it's coasters, whether it's flat rides, whether it's water rides, things that you can put on Instagram, on Facebook, and they sort of speak for themselves, but also offer great ride experiences, offer great maintenance experiences. And when you get all three of those things together, that's when I think you have a great attraction. And that's really where our focus has been for kind of our 2021 releases.
Well, you segued quite nicely into the next question I wanted to ask, and that's rides that sell themselves. And I kind of want to touch on something you told the ACE members at the No Coaster Con a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that the 9 inverted coaster, which opened at Universal Studios Singapore, the Puss in Boots ride, it kind of revitalized the coaster division at Zamperla. And for anybody listening, go check this ride out on YouTube. It is a family story coaster, dark ride, hybrid. I don't know the best way to describe it, but why do you think the 9 inverted coaster revitalized Zamperla's coaster department?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say revitalize. What I would say is, and I think this is common knowledge, I can't get into specifics, but most park enthusiasts know that Universal and Disney have just different sets of expectations and requirements when you work for them. And because of that, you really learn a lot about what you know and what you don't know and what you can do better. When you look at Zamperla's history, one of the things that really changed the company was they did a package of, I think it was 8 or 9 rides for Disneyland Paris. And that changed, a lot of things about the company. Internally, they really revised their QA, quality assurance, and other standards to kind of meet Disney's expectations. And from, the outside, our competitors and other parks said, man, not only did they work for Disney, but they did an amazing job. Like, they put together some great thematic concepts. They put together rides that can work well year-round, high attendance, high volume property. And we had a lot of the same thing with the 9 Inverted. So it was a ride that had, really strict requirements from operational uptime, from design review. And sort of the same thing. When we came out of that, we said, here's what we've been doing really well. Here's where we can improve. And we're going to take what we've learned about ourselves and inject that into the future, because that really dovetailed into other work we were doing at the time, because kind of, as I mentioned, that ACE talk, when the Thunderbolt came out, one thing I think that made me really want to work here is that the family didn't say, oh, that's the best coaster ever. They said, that's a really good ride, a really iconic piece for Coney Island, but we can improve on it. And so we actually kind of undertaken at that time a long-term evaluation of our quality assurance and fabrication process, because we wanted to put out a better product. So all these things are kind of just swirling and came together. And really the 9 Inverted kind of kicked off, I would say, the next generation of Zamperla coasters, if you want to put it that way.
Absolutely. And obviously, Zamperla they're primarily known for their, more family-friendly attractions, but they do have several coasters that, enthusiasts would consider more thrilling coasters, got some speed or some inversions or, a vertical lift like the Thunderbolt. How has the Thunderbolt specifically evolved kind of over time? I know you mentioned that the family was like, yes, it's a good coaster, but it could be better.
So, we did a lot of things right. I think the layout was a really good one. We had, the story I tell, even going back a little further, is that ride was basically done in a year, which still amazes me that we went from saying, yeah, we can do this, to opening, so that means vehicle design, centerline design, structural design all in a year. And so we had that. And then where we've gone, I think, is taking sort of the good bones, which is the componentry, and then adding the Lightning vehicle. And that's sort of, I think, our game changer on that particular attraction, because we went to a machine milled aluminum chassis on it, very different from the Thunderbolt. We have, I think, 2 structural welds on it. So from an NDT perspective, it's very different. From a weight perspective, it's thousands of pounds lighter. So all around, it, to your casual park goer, it looks very similar, but kind of, as I call it, under the hood, or, to what enthusiasts know, it's a very different creature. And then also the creature comfort part of it, the restraints, the seat molds, and other things are much better than the Thunderbolt. So, we're talking to several clients right now about essentially using some of the Thunderbolt layouts, some of the Thunderbolt concepts, but using the Lightning vehicle. And we know that's going to be an even better ride, because we're kind of combining what we've learned on the track fab side with the new vehicle, just to make for a great ride experience.
So are those new vehicles still has the 3 across seating?
Nope, they're actually 4 now. So we're going 4 on the Lightning vehicle, and that it's a modular system, so we can do 2 rows or up to 6, 7 if a client wants it that way. So really trying to meet different budgetary and capacity requirements from clients.
Is there a reason that the Thunderbolt had the unique 3 across seating, whereas most others, traditionally it's 2 or 4? Is there a mechanical reason, or is that just based on data from theme parks?
So that one was really just at Coney, you get a lot, who rides the Thunderbolt? It's a lot of single riders and a lot of couples. So looking at that, we just said, why don't we just really tailor it to Coney? And so that seating configuration made a lot of sense in that environment. And then that kind of just became our thrill platform, and we rolled that out to other installations. But long term, we just said, having 2 or 4 across made more sense. And with the style of track we have, we felt 4 across made the most sense from a cost perspective. So that's why we really moved toward the Lightning vehicle concept as our long-term thrill platform.
Got it. I want to talk about a couple other Zamperla coaster models, just because I find them, again, as just a not very well-traveled American. I see these videos on YouTube, and they're fantastic. The factory coaster, I know there's one in existence at the park you mentioned in China, whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Do you think, and I know I'm not asking for you to reveal all of the trade secrets of Zamperla, are we ever going to see a factory coaster stateside?
I hope so. Mostly because and again, I haven't been on it yet, but I've talked to both people at the company and enthusiasts have been on it, and pretty much everybody loves that ride. It's pretty awesome. There are certainly only, and this is kind of in any market, only so many clients that are looking for a ride that serves that capacity, which is well over 1,000 and is an indoor themed experience. So there are only so many of those, but it's a really cool ride and just has a lot of marketable attributes. So I think, for specifically the North American market, if you pair that with the right IP, and it needs to be a famous IP certainly to warrant that kind of investment. But if you pair that with a superhero or some other well-known intellectual property, I think it would be a home run. Just with the forward launch, the backward launch, and the free fall drop, it makes for a great ride experience. And we've also, because that was so well received in China, we've actually even conceptualized that with a LSM launch instead of a chain lift, and are going to start offering that option also. So either way, I think it's an extremely marketable attraction if you're looking for a really immersive ride experience. And in China, they do use glasses for 3D film. Even without that, if you just did 2D film, I think you could have a great attraction that is something that is kind of a benchmark attraction for decades at a property.
So to all of the people at a park who are listening to this podcast who have superheroes in their IP portfolio, you should call Adam and we should make this happen because we need one of these coasters.
Give me a buzz.
Well, we won't give you his phone number, but you can probably get that anyway.
Yeah, I'm a sales guy. I'm easy to find.
And then the other model I want to talk about, and we recently had Dave Cobb on the podcast, and he talked about Warner Brothers World Abu Dhabi, and Zamperla put in the Tom and Jerry Swiss cheese spin, which when I was doing some research for this podcast today, I don't know if they banned video on it or anything, but there are no videos of this coaster, no POVs, no nothing. It looks awesome based on the still photos I've seen, but are there plans to bring it to the U.S., but why is a coaster like this perfect for the U.S. market?
Well, after the show, remind me, and I'll send you our POV, because I do have that.
Awesome.
But I think that coaster in particular, we've done, I think like 46, 47 Twister coasters now, so there are a ton of those all over the world. And that client in particular was looking for a spinning coaster, low height requirement. I think we're 42 on it. It had to have a lot of the things Warner, as the IP owner, was looking for. So extremely thematic. We had onboard audio on it also on that particular installation. And it had to be a great ride too. And the layout that Alberto and the team came up with was just really fabulous for it. So it basically on that one, you go up the chain lift, and then we have kind of a series of switchbacks like on the classic Twister coaster. And then it just dives down and kind of goes into all sorts of mayhem. Just basically is kind of a combination of helices and airtime hills for the second half of the ride. It just works out really well. And yeah, we sell that, and again, in Abu Dhabi, it was put, inside, indoors in a very highly themed environment, but it could certainly sit outside, as a standalone attraction. And, the problem with spinning coasters when you have individual vehicles or any individual vehicle ride is, your capacity just sort of maxes out at whatever any manufacturer tells they get 800, 1,000. It's not true. They're going to get 500 plus or minus real number on any individual vehicle coaster, really. So that one, we can kind of take the great parts of the spinning coaster, but since we put it in a train, you can get some real good capacity on it, like 750, 800 real numbers. So you can satisfy that capacity requirement, but also offer the same great spinning coaster experience that we've been known for quite a while now.
Was the on-ride audio, is that a relatively new thing for you all?
Yeah, we've done it some. I think that, Zamperla historically, both for flat rides and coasters, we've done it in various applications. It was on the 9 inverted also. But there, that was, I think, for us a challenge because we already had some fairly compact vehicles and we weren't designing them from scratch like we did on the 9 inverted. So we had to figure out, okay, we've got weight requirements, we've got space requirements. How do we fit this audio system and have it project well onto guests, but not be too heavy and make sure it fit in the existing fiberglass mold. So it was certainly a challenge, a very fun one, but certainly a challenge for that particular ride. But onboard audio is something we've done at clients' request for quite a while now.
So heading into the future, I guess without getting into too much detail, what is the overall goal of Zamperla? Are you trying to get more into the thrill category for roller coasters, do you think? And does Zamperla have any like design philosophies? Like it seems like a lot of your biggest coasters to date have been more focused on inversions. Do you see them building like a more straight, like airtime hill, airtime machine roller coaster? Or is that more just whatever the customer wants?
Yeah, honestly, the customer drives so much for us. Just being a sales-oriented company, we very much listen to what the customer is looking for, and that's what we'll design. So the factory coaster, I think, is a great example. We'd never done anything like that before. The client came to us and said, this is what we're thinking about. Can you do something like that? And we came up with a majority of that ride concept with our coaster design team. So certainly that is, client input is a huge part of what we do. But generally speaking, yeah, I think, we've been strong in the, call it kiddie coaster, junior coaster, family coaster realm. And our goal is really to step up our game on the bigger half of the equation. So to kind of go to toe-to-toe with a lot of the big manufacturers and offer rides that are competitively priced, but also offer great ride experiences. So for those medium and large coasters, we're going to be, bringing product to market over the next 24, 36 months that is really unique, but also is certainly that larger price point, larger footprint. And with kind of the growing we've done, doing projects like the Universal project, the Warner project, the Ferrari World project, we know we've got both the engineering capability and the fabrication capability to meet the demands of not only the client, but also the riders. Because, riders today are certainly more sophisticated than they were 20 years ago, 40 years ago. We're aware that there are obviously companies like B&M who, when they came out with, Iron Wolf was cool, but Batman was revolutionary. It changed the game. And they took their cumulative knowledge working with Intamin for years to make a great product. And we recognize that today's park goers have certain expectations for coasters, and we want to not only meet them, we want to exceed them. We want to come off, have them come off our ride saying it was one of the best coasters I've been on, one of the smoothest coasters I've been on, if it's a thrill ride or if it's a family attraction, just something that is a great memory maker for families. So we want to be one of the key coaster manufacturers in the industry, moving forward the next 5 to 10 years.
I love to hear that. It's refreshing. I mean, not to say you guys are going to go for any of those, what I like to call S coasters, like the tallest, fastest, steepest, longest, but it's a welcome thought to hear that Zamperla's kind of get into the thrills game a little stronger. Take another step in the pool.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we want to, as I said at the ACE presentation, we really want to be an innovator, not a duplicator. So the concepts that we're going to be bringing to market, they could be improvements on existing technology. In other cases, from some of the concepts I've seen, we're first to market. So we're going to kind of set the table in a lot of ways. I'm thrilled to be the guy representing that, because we're not only saying we can do coasters or we can do big coasters, but we're going to say, we're going to bring you concepts that no one has ever seen before. And I am thrilled to be the guy representing that.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about Zamperla's roller coasters in 2021. I know, again, you can't probably tell me out everything, but according to the good folks over at RCDB, that looks like there is a kind of a mini resurgence of Zamperla coasters in the United States, or new Zamperla coasters, rather. You guys have the Dragon Apprentice at Legoland, New York. You've got the Spinning Wild Mouse, the Twister coaster at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. And then when I was at IAAPA in 2019, there was a junior coaster that was announced. I'm not trying to break the news here, is that still on the books as happening?
So we announced the junior coaster at Coney, and I honestly can't speak to what's happening with that one in particular, just because I'm not involved in the day-to-day on the operations side all at Luna. I do know that it's common knowledge that New York, Massachusetts, and California just have been very difficult for the industry as a whole, because we haven't really gotten, I think, very clear direction from those states. And so that I honestly don't know what we're doing with that. So certainly our long-term plan is to have that coaster paired with the flume at Coney. I just can't speak to exactly when that's going to happen.
Okay. I completely understand. I know it is an extremely weird time right now, but it's obviously
yes.
It's great news about the Dragon Apprentice, which is a coaster that exists in other Legoland parks around the world. I know the Legoland in Dubai has a similar model, and then I've ridden Raging Cajun, the park in your backyard, Six Flags America, so I know what's everything's great about that. And if they put together everything at Six Flags like they did, like they said they were going to in the teaser with the snakes in the queue and things like that, I think it'll be a really solid attraction.
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be a really nice fit for that property, and just from a height requirement perspective at that park, it's going to work really well because they don't have a whole lot for kind of call it 6 to 10-year-olds, at that height requirement. Because I think we're 42 inches to ride. And then the other one we did have is we opened the family gravity coaster at Bollywood in Dubai this year also. So that one opened just after the first of the year.
Wonderful. Adam, how old are you? How many kids do you have and how old are they?
So I've got two, both ladies, and they're 9 and 5 at this point.
So are they coaster riders? Are they big into it?
So yeah, so my oldest Anya doesn't like crazy drops. Sure, if I haven't gotten her in a whizzer, but I figure like that would kind of like be in her wheelhouse because it's all turns. Like she's been on Super Duper Looper and the Aero Mine Train up at Hershey, and like those were kind of right in her wheelhouse.
Okay. But
the flip side is she doesn't have a fear of heights like I did as a kid. Like I was petrified of heights when I was young. She went on the Star Flyer with me at Valley Fair because I took her up for engineering day when I spoke there. I told her, you don't have to ride, and she wanted to hop on. She rode the parachute jump, the Intamin one at Tokyo Dome with me, and like loved it. Again, at her age, I never would have. And then Kira, who's my youngest, is definitely a little firecracker. She's also tiny. So she's like, we measured the other day, she's 41.5 inches with shoes. So I need her to grow a little bit so she can get up to 42. And she just has the personality where she pretty much will ride anything. But our problem has been so far, she's not been tall enough to ride a whole lot. So it's been a little frustrating. But yeah, like I took them to Six Flags America over during their Christmas event, and we pretty much rode everything that we could ride, with the three of us together, and just had a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my 7-year-old, his favorite coaster is Fire Chaser Express at Dollywood.
A good choice.
Was that one that you sold?
It was, yes. No, that was a really, really fun project, just from concept through completion for us. And I love working on that project. I love working with Hershey. I love working with Dollywood. And that end product, I think, in our industry, there's certainly some, as a salesperson, you sell anything you can. But there are certainly some projects that you have a certain affinity for, and that was definitely one of them.
Yeah, I think that's one of those models I think we as coaster enthusiasts look around and say, well, like, why aren't there more of these out there?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I think it's hard because, from on the industry side, we say, like, log flumes and whether you want to call it mine trains or family coasters just have great ridership. Like at Dollywood, I think out after the train, I think we're the most popular attraction in the park. But they're just not as marketable. And so I think a lot of parks have started to, especially in the U.S., I think we've been a little late to the game on this, have recognized that what I call guest satisfiers are as important as stuff that are, as you mentioned, the EST coasters earlier. So you certainly need those. You need some record breakers. And, I would never fault a park for putting in something that was, whether it was gimmicky or record breaking, you need that. You need that to drive the gate. But in my opinion, you also want people to stay and have a great time. And I think that's what log flumes, that's what family mine trains, those types of coasters are there for, because they don't only make families happy, they create repeat customers. Because as a lot of other people have said, you come, like Dollywood's a good example, you come for Lightning Rod or Wild Eagle. Like that's why a lot of thrill seekers go there. But you come back because your kid had a ride on Fire Chaser and loved it. And that's why, you come back. Or in Wildwood Grove, where they got all those amazing family attractions now, that you ride something with your 3 or 5-year-old and you create a memory as an adult, but also that, that child creates a memory, and that's indelible, I think. And for me personally, I know I grew up going to Busch Gardens Williamsburg and Busch Gardens Tampa because my dad worked for Anheuser-Busch, and I remember those visits when I was extremely young, and those, I still hold those memories very dear to me. So I think that sometimes as an industry, we, are rightly so very excited about cool new stuff that's highest, fastest, whatever. But I think sometimes to our detriment, we may undervalue the memories we create when we offer just some great classic attractions.
Yep, definitely. Totally agree. So I'm looking at the Zamperla website now, and I see something that I would describe as a car wash for roller coaster cars. Mm-hmm. It's called the wash-through ride system.
Yes.
So this looks like something for in these times of COVID, where you can quickly sanitize cars without having to shut the ride down. You basically, the car goes through like a tunnel that gets sprayed with sanitizer. Has any of these been installed yet? Do you know?
They haven't yet. So our whole thing was, COVID hit, and our company, like so many others last year, like, what do we do? The word of 2020 was pivot. How do we pivot? How do we make changes? And for us, that we thought about how can we best respond to guests. So to parks. So one thing we did was we created these basically plexiglass shields that we could put on various Zamperla attractions to essentially segregate guests, mitigate potential disease transmission. And we were just giving parks the plans, and they could have them created locally. We weren't looking to make a lot of money off them. We were just saying, man, if our customers can open, that'd be awesome. Here are ways we can offer these modifications that are very simple, that can get state approval and can get done quickly at your local machine shop. We're not looking to make thousands of dollars. Here are the plans, have them built locally just so you can have another ride to get open. And this was sort of the same thing. Our goal was really, if we could have opened Luna last year, we would have put this on the Thunderbolt at Coney. Unfortunately, we couldn't, and so we didn't. But it was just another way our team was understandably just frustrated, kind of, because so many things have been put on hold. And our coaster design team is not one to just to sit and wait for something to happen. So they were just sitting around the table saying, okay, what can we do? And that's how they came up with that. Just say, okay, our clients are going to need this potentially. Let's just design it and put it out there. And, and again, our goal was to have it up and running at Coney last summer, but unfortunately we just couldn't get it open then. But it's just a very simple system, but very effective system that actually uses a liquid that, and essentially a cleaner, for lack of a better word, that works both on the vehicles, doesn't affect the padding, and can even go on guests. That in Italy they were using kind of at the height of COVID when they had it last spring, early summer. And so it was something that you could just run people through like a car wash. It evaporates quickly, but it would sanitize the vehicles very quickly also. So just another thing that our team was sitting around thinking, okay, how can we help our clients? And that was something they came up with.
And that can be built on any coaster, right?
Yep, exactly. Totally customizable. So we can make it work for our stuff, for competitor stuff. Again, the goal is really not as a profit center, but just to help our clients have another option, as they try and get as many rides as they could open, last year and even this year.
I want to talk a little bit about something else kind of in the COVID area that's not really COVID specific, but another thing that Zamperla has kind of revolutionized a little bit is support through the use of augmented reality. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? Obviously, it's a need in this time where people can't travel and things, but how's the support been or the reception been for that, rather? And, I mean, is this something that more businesses should look into doing?
The response has been really good. And in all honesty, a lot of people say that COVID's an accelerator, I think, for a lot of change. And it was the same case here. So our CEO, Antonio, is someone who has really been invested in technology. And he spent a lot of years out in Silicon Valley and, picked up just, I think, a different way of thinking maybe from traditional ride manufacturers. So when he was with the company, when he's been with the company, his goal has always been to say, how can we use technology to make it better? Not in an attempt, and I think a lot of companies sometimes, fall victim to this, where they try and say, okay, everything needs to be tech. No, everything doesn't need to be tech. But a lot of things can be made better by augmenting them with technology, sometimes in very small ways, sometimes in very large ways. And with the virtual AR, this was something that, we saw that Microsoft just had an off-the-shelf product that worked really well, but it was certainly not geared toward our industry, which, if you're out on a job site, the attraction industry, our things take a beating in normal circumstances, let alone when you're installing it. And so we worked with Microsoft to make the product a little more durable, and that's certainly something that's still ongoing. But yeah, last year we had a couple of ride installations and some troubleshooting. I remember I saw a video of a jump around specifically where we can use the AR to either do a complete ride installation and work hand in hand with the ride installers, where our techs are in Italy and they're on site, or if there are mechanical issues with an attraction, we can look at it, and basically our tech will draw on the screen, when they look at, like a gear mesh or something, and say this is out of alignment. Our tech can highlight that, and then the client who's on site can see, they'll have the lens over it. They can see where our tech is drawing, and it know exactly, they know where the problem is, but what needs to be changed. Or, I think it's very good for really small, minute things that, maybe the naked eye might not pick up, but our tech can say, ooh, that looks a little bit out of alignment, just because he's looked at, 300 of these or something in the field. And then the maintenance person on site can make that change. So it's certainly something that we're going to be doing more of. Again, I think it's a balance. We're not going to be going all to that where we just have a bunch of people in Italy set up, because I do think that you gain a lot of benefits by having staff on site working hand in hand. We feel that's very important. That's why we've got offices all over the world, because we just think that creating relationships and working hand in hand with clients really helps that knowledge transfer very well. But certainly there are certain cases, whether it's something that happens where you got to have an answer right away and we just can't get someone on a plane, or it's just strange things like a pandemic where we need to work around issues and we understand that our clients need to be up and running, but we physically can't be there. So this is the next best thing, and we can work with that to make sure they're up and running. And long term, I think really our goal is to find that best balance between those two worlds from a cost perspective, from an uptime perspective, and work with our clients just to make sure that they can kind of get the best service possible.
Well, and I'm going to want to start, we've taken up a lot of your time. I want to wrap up. I've got a couple of real quick questions here. So let's put on the Adam Sandy hat here. What are your personal goals for the roller coaster division of Zamperla, be it, future tech, or if it's the lightning trains or the dangle coaster that was unveiled at IAAPA 2019? What is your personal goals and plans as you kind of embark onto this new journey for Zamperla?
I think that there are two. So short term, it's definitely telling the story. And that is some of the things we talked about tonight, like the 9-inverter and that kind of changing our game. But it's just, we've done a ton of work around the world on coasters that a lot of people don't know about, or know about maybe regionally, but not internationally. And also we've done a lot of the unsexy work. A lot of the engineering team back in Italy has taken huge steps in making sure they engineered great product, and then also making sure that engineered product got translated correctly into fabricated product. And a lot of that stuff is, they're not the things that are heralded. They're not the fun stuff, but it's the hard work that kind of gets you to great product. So short term is just telling, honestly, their story and making sure that clients, when I say Zamperla is going to do X, Y, and Z, they're, some of them, and rightfully, they're like, well, how can they do that? Well, I'm like, well, give me 20 minutes and we'll talk. Or I've had some hour-long conversations with some clients and talked with Alberto Ferry, who does a great job running our roller coaster division, and talked with clients and just really showed them from an engineering perspective, from a fabrication perspective, here's what you know about us and here's what we've done. And every one of those meetings I've come out with, every client has said, holy shit, I had no idea. And that to me just says a lot. And I think that's really important because we're telling sort of our story in our own terms. We've had our story told by others quite a bit. And now I think we're sort of finding our voice there, which is a good thing. And I think it also helps because we're being honest. We're not saying every coaster we built is great. We're saying that we built some good ones, we built some bad ones, but we know what's worked, and we're kind of taking what's worked in the past, which has been a lot of, the bones, like even the Volare, which some enthusiasts love to trash. On the flip side, those rides have great uptime. So I'm not saying it's the best ride experience, but I am saying from an ownership perspective, a lot of those rides do really, really well just operating day to day, or after the winter, you can turn them on and they run again. So we're taking those bits and pieces and making sure our clients understand that story short term, but long term, it's really saying, and this is from a lot of different conversations. This is myself speaking with the coaster team in Italy. This is myself speaking with the sales team all over the world, and then us speaking with clients and saying, what do we think is cool and revolutionary? And also showing those concepts to clients and saying, what do you think? Because one thing I've enjoyed being here, being a sales-oriented company, is we really talk to our clients and make sure we understand what helps them. Because there's certainly some manufacturers in our industry who come up with great ideas, but either they're too expensive, they have low capacity, or they just don't meet the needs of clients. And we're really trying to say, what can we come up with that's, on the one hand, innovative and different and unique to market, but on the flip side are things that our clients want to buy, need to buy, and really make sense in their business plan. Because when you mesh those two, that's when I think you create really successful coasters. Like, yes, it's really cool to come up with unique one-offs, but if you can come up with a great ride that is successful worldwide, like hats off to companies like Vekoma and the Boomerang, something like that, that's a great attraction because it works at a bunch of different parks. They've built God knows how many now, I think like 50, 60 plus. So from a business standpoint, it works well. From a buyer standpoint, it works well. And from a guest standpoint, because so many, being honest, so many of our guests don't travel to 50 parks. They go to one or two. And it makes them happy, and they ride it with their friends or they ride it with their mom or dad, and they come out with a great memory. And that's, at the end of the day, our job is to do a lot of things, but it's to create memorable experiences for our clients' customers. Because my job is to create a ride and work with our team to create a ride that has great uptime, great ride experience, because that means that the kid with their parent, the kid with their grandparent, those kids on their first date, they get to ride our coaster and have a great memory. And that's really when you kind of boil what I do down to its essence, it's creating family memories and making sure that people have great experiences. And that's really what's important. So that's my long-term goal, is really working with our team to just create great experiences for the people that go to parks and go to have a good time. Because, Lord knows right now that so many of us just are looking for the time that we can kind of put this behind us a little bit and get out. And I just know in my heart that people want and need to go to amusement parks because they're so many reasons. They're tired of being in their home. They're tired of looking at their screens. They want outdoor experiences they can do with other people, whether they're friends, family, what have you. And I think amusement parks play a really vital role in sort of the, if you want to call it, mental cleansing as we come out of COVID lifestyle.
Yes.
And I don't think we should sell ourselves short on kind of the joy we provide. And long term, we just want to be one of the companies that when parks say, I want to offer unique experience. I want to offer an affordable experience. I want to offer something that has great uptime, and they call me because they know Zamperla coasters check all of those boxes. Like that is our long-term goal. Like in 10 years, that's where we want to be as a company, and look around and say, we reset the table for our competitors. Now they have to play catch up to us.
That is one hell of a sales pitch. That is. I'm ready to run through a brick wall for Zamperla right now. So thank you for that. That was fantastic.
There you go.
I want to talk social media just real quick, and I know you've got a really good Instagram account, your own personal Instagram account, which is Roller Coaster Sales Guy. But Zamperla recently, they've been doing a lot of different things on social media. I don't want to say use the phrase the Cam Newton font, but they've been doing some teases on Instagram that kind of they're just off the wall. And as someone who loves a good tease and loves kind of deciphering, I don't even know where to start. And I know you were kind of with Ride Entertainment social media, and now especially around IAAPA, you kind of brought the memes to Twitter and Instagram for Ride Entertainment. I mean, are you?
Yeah, the smart ass. Yeah.
Do you have any role in the Zamperla social media as the marketing guy, or what do these teases mean? We want to know everything.
So I can say that the teases, all I can say on that is that they have a lot of reference to just the cool stuff we're going to be showing off this year. So I'm kind of sworn to secrecy on deciphering that. However, I will say that we are really working to create a series of specific social channels for our coasters, and we're going to have those come out this year because, again, kind of the roller coaster division is going to operate as its own business unit. I mean, it has been, but especially as we work to develop Zamperla coasters and its own identity, we're going to have our own social media channels for that. So you can certainly look us up at Zamperla Rides right now, but just know that in a month or two, our goal is to really have kind of sister accounts, if you want to call them that, at least on Insta and Facebook, where we just talk about some of the new cool stuff we're doing. It'll have, some of the same carryover as the main Zamperla page, but it'll certainly have its own voice. I am pushing for some smart ass memes. I don't know how many I'll get, but it's certainly something I'd love to do more of. But yeah, we want to have the coasters have their own specific voice, because that's in a way the reason I'm here. And it's not me, it's more the company recognized that when we sell attractions, traditional flat rides, and those are, kiddie rides, thrill rides, we have a certain voice, a certain methodology to selling those, and we've been really, really good. Coasters are sort of their own animal, and that's why they hired me. They hired some great designers on the coaster side who are also enthusiasts. We've got a great young team of all these people that I don't want to give out names just because of privacy issues, but I'll say that they've hired some great young people with enthusiast backgrounds, who are under 30, very passionate about the industry. We have our own little, text chain where we kind of say, hey, did you see this? This looks really cool. But it's a really great group of people, and we want to have that division have its own voice on the net. So that's what we're really working toward, and that I think we're going to announce that the next month or two, just sort of depending on, so many things are in COVID life, things go time-wise, but look for that by April at the latest. I'd say we're going to announce and start showing off these new coaster channels, which people can subscribe to.
That's awesome. Well, we are certainly very excited for the future of Zamperla, the future of Zamperla's coasters. Maybe the memes, maybe not. We hope we can get them in there.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Can't wait to see what you come up with. As Adam said, you can follow Zamperla on all the social at Zamperla Rides. You can follow Adam's Instagram. He posts some amazing travel photos. Adam, I don't think you're private at this point, are you?
No.
Okay. If not, you might need to unlock it for all of our all of our adoring podcast audience. But he is on Instagram at Roller Coaster Sales Guy, all one word.
Yep, open for anybody. And if I can pitch one, can I throw in one pitch for what we're looking for from any coaster fans listening?
Absolutely, yes.
Anyone out there who's got pictures, videos, Zamperla roller coasters, one thing that we just haven't done a great job of historically is getting pictures of our rides, just because we do so many a year. Our texts are kind of in and out right away. So if you've got some cool pictures, video, whatever it is of our coasters around the world, check out our Facebook page. And you can also send them just to, I believe, and I should know this offhand, but I don't, but I believe our address is rollercoasters@zamperla.com. Send them there. And then everyone who submits something, we're kind of throwing all the names in a hat. And with that, we're going to be giving out some Zamperla swag later this spring. So if you have some cool imagery, we're really looking for anything and anything that you've taken of our coasters. We would love to see it. And we're really trying to just do kind of, this and other things, more engagement with our fans and followers. And we just really appreciate everybody kind of taking the time. So yeah, the address is rollercoasters@zamperla.com. So if you've got images, video, anything we've done around the world, we would love to see it, and we really thank everybody for helping us out. We've had a great response so far, but we're just trying to get the word out to anyone who thinks they've got a good eye for photography or video.
Well, Adam, when you see the email come in from podcast@coaster101.com, I'm a double X shirt. I love swag, so if you just want to send me whatever.
We'll make sure something comes your way.
I love it. That's going to do it for this episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. Thanks again, Adam, for your time. Some really great insights. Be sure to check us out. We actually are a website, not just a podcast. We're at coaster101.com. And we are also at Coaster1 on all the social channels, wherever you consume your social media. I think most of the platforms anyway. Be sure you're liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and all of those podcast buzzwords wherever you get your podcast. Really helps people find us, helps us create more content, helps us attract really good guests like Adam. As I mentioned, the email podcast@coaster101.com with questions, comments, concerns, fan mail, hate mail. If you want us to forward your images to Zamperla with roller coasters, we will take credit for them and take the swag. Not really, we'll send it on. But thanks as always to JM Music Design for our theme music. That'll do it for this week's show, and we will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.